Where technology meets law.
Hey, my name is Alec. I'm joined here by Paul Wright. This is the LegalSoft Solution podcast that we're doing. So, Paul, why did you decide to pursue a career in law?
Well, I think that just starts in childhood when you have a connection to something. In my family, education was the way that we connected. And when I was 8 years old, I knew that doctor or lawyer was the highest you could go. So the ambition first started with, I just wanted to go as far as you could go in school. Then as I got into law school, I ultimately knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But in any business that you're running, law is going to be a big part of it. I figured that you are going to be sued at some point. I didn't want to just have theory. I wanted to know how to really handle it to protect whatever future company I was a part of, and that would have required me to practice. And so as I got out of school and into my first firm, ultimately I fell in love with what I was doing, which was bankruptcy and working with clients, and I was in and out of court a lot. So it snowballed into 10 years of practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you say, doctor or lawyer, and then you ended up wanting to be a business person, but that wasn't something that you initially, I think, considered as, was it? It sounds like no.
No, I think that some of that is, there was no example to draw from. No one in my family was an entrepreneur or a business owner.
Right.
And so I think when I was first conceptualizing what I would do with my life, I didn't have an example to draw from. And so then it just, as you start dreaming up businesses,
sure,
you kind of move into that. And then bankruptcy, I've been a part of so many people's lives, and small businesses are the heartbeat of America. And so it is, as you are part of so many businesses, you can't help but just dream up your own.
Wow. Okay. But you mentioned first that you got into bankruptcy law. I'm curious, that's not something that I think a lot of lawyers, when they're like, I want to be a lawyer, it's trial lawyer. Some of them, coworkers of mine know already they want to be a judge one day. How did you end up in bankruptcy?
Yeah, great question. So, interesting story. I graduated law school in 2008 and studied for the bar, and then as you're waiting for the bar results, Great Recession hit. My whole brilliant plan, I too wanted to be a litigator. I was going to go to Chicago, be a public defender, do that for 3 years, skip over to DC, work for a boutique law firm. That was it. 132 rejection letters later, because every single county went on hiring freeze. My parents were in Dallas, so I was like, all right, I don't want to take a bar again. Let me go home. I had two options: immigration, bankruptcy, to allow me to work in federal court, because that's where, if you're licensed in one state, you got to work in another.
And you were just trying to get your foot in the door.
Just needed a job, and I said, bankruptcy's booming. And then this is where the universe where your energy gets you there, and people talk about how your career falls into your lap.
Yeah.
Bankruptcy is fast-paced, it's client-intensive, but you're in court, and it's intelligent conversations. Those all happen to fit with my personality.
Sure.
I fell in love with it, opened my own practice. Here I am.
Wow. Great. I guess moving from there, I'll ask you, why did you ultimately decide to pivot into the legal tech industry? Let me see if I can find one that is a little picking up from bankruptcy. I guess what I'm interested in knowing, on the topic still of bankruptcy law and just the practice areas in general, where you think the legal industry, maybe we can focus on bankruptcy first and then transition it to the larger industry, where you think legal industry is going.
So, it's hard to it's hard to predict, but what I will say is that the legal industry on the whole, is coming into a major transition. So if you really look at most law firms, their managing attorneys are in their 60s and 70s. Yeah. Lawyers work a little bit longer than maybe other industries, but there is about to be a mass retiring of baby boomers, which means the next generation of leaders that are in their young 40s, late 30s are now going to become managing attorneys. which means you have millennials and you
I'm
have
seeing it already.
yes, and which means that they're a generation that grew up half of their life when they were 13 and 14. Technology became a major part of it.
Right.
You know, in high school I had my first cell phone, so I know what life was like before.
Was it a computer cell phone? Or
Oh,
was...
full Zach Morris, you know? And you all probably don't even know who
Yeah.
Zach Morris is.
I
Saved by
don't
the
know.
Bell. That would tell you. So there's
Oh,
a
I know
generation
Saved by the
jump.
Bell.
Saved by the Bell, Zach Morris phone, those huge ones.
Yeah.
So you'd have to Google it. But anyway, the point would be is you're going to have firms that are now managed by people that embrace technology, where
Yeah.
before right now I think it's butting heads.
Sure.
So I think you're going to
Or there's a
see
fear, you
Yes.
know? And it's understandable. I mean,
Absolutely.
you were telling me this morning about switching from Outlook to Gmail, which
Yes.
is so simple, and it's just, you know, humans are creatures of habit, number one, and I think it's intimidating.
You trust what works for you, you know, and that is, and it's hard for any business to do a major crossover. Technology by nature is fast paced and
It's disruptive.
it is, and people that are in the tech world, they're so used to like get the minimum viable product out, you know, 80% done. That is so counterintuitive to the way a lawyer works,
Yeah.
because you know they're not even
Thanks.
going to go into court until they know every freaking question that they're going to ask. So where I think that the world is going to go is that those firms that embrace technology, they're going to move them forward, because on the flip side, society has already embraced technology.
Yeah.
I can tell you how I live. I don't want to pick up the phone and call anyone. If you're not a business that doesn't allow me to communicate with you through text,
Interesting.
I'm not that interested in communicating with you.
Wow.
The same is going to apply to your clients.
I can relate to that, actually. I'll get
Yeah.
stuck going through emails, and then once I decide to start texting somebody, you know, I actually can start making progress again. I'm curious, you're saying, you know, this is a generation of attorneys who is embracing technology. Is there, you know, one area that you think is going to pick up maybe the quickest, or it's going to be kind of, if you don't do this, if you're missing this, you know, what's going to be the key separator? I'm asking about, like, you know, whether or not a firm uses a case management software and is running their information out of like Google Sheets and Word, which I interact with a lot. Or if a firm needs a mobile app and doesn't have one to escalate and allow for easier client communication. Is there any particular thing, you know, we have a social media service that I talk to a lot of attorneys about, and to some, you know, there's not this immediate like, oh, I need this, the same way that they think that they need a website or a paralegal kind of thing. Is there one thing that stands out to you as something that is like going to be the separator?
Wow. So, you know, I do think that the law, one of the shifts that is happening is how clients come to you. You know, for a long time, it really was just a straight referral. And that is shifting to where as law becomes competitive and runs more like a business, branding becomes an important thing to pay attention to, which is then your social media marketing and your branding efforts you have to start paying attention to, because it is...
It's how we check everything. It's how I check, you know. I don't go to a restaurant without seeing its Yelp
Right.
or its Instagram. And I go to restaurants that I've never heard of before that I see just on Instagram, and then my friends send me.
Lawyers,
The restaurant is just one
absolutely.
thing.
Lawyers work just like anything else. When you find a great one, you tell everyone about it. The same way when you find a great
Yeah, you're
restaurant,
right.
you tell everyone about it. And as our life starts blending more, it just means that you
And those
gotta
are
worry about
cases
your
for
brand.
free, or
Right.
clients for free.
Absolutely,
too.
that's the goal. And I don't think that there's going to be one area of law that fits technology better. The beauty of technology is that answers needs, and needs are answered for anyone. You know,
Right.
whether you need a criminal lawyer or a PI lawyer, the services of a virtual assistant or the services of lead generation or the services of social media marketing, that applies across the board. And again, it is saying the more that you open yourself up to hearing and receiving how you can shift your own practice management, the better off you are. And then to finish that, if you do not have a CRM, you are already dead in the water.
Wow. Okay. Well, for the clients that I've talked to like that, you know, erase that part. I don't know if you're quite dead in the water, but let's see if we can push you a little bit forward, catch up. So you've given some great answers, I think, as a lawyer, but I'm talking to you today, welcoming you to the team. not as your title anymore. You're a strategic account manager and consultant, correct?
Exactly.
So tell me about pivoting into the legal tech industry.
Right.
What is that?
So this is one of the things that I think makes a lawyer a good lawyer, is life in all situations are shades of gray. And the best way, there are two sides to every story. Every mom and dad that go through a divorce, they have their perspective of what went wrong in the marriage. Neither one is necessarily right or wrong, it's gray.
Yeah.
But the law, we require the law to take gray and say, this is black and white, and there's a winner, and there's a loser, and this is what it is. It got increasingly difficult for me to be a part of that legal aspect as a lawyer. And when I recognized that I couldn't serve my clients because I did not enjoy the process of that, I needed to get out. But I loved working with clients, I love strategy, and I love the law. This allows me to get to the consulting side and strategy to let lawyers who want to be great lawyers continue to do that, and me stick with the part that I really do love.
It sounds like you found, from my experience being a strategic account manager, it
Yeah.
sounds like that's a good home for people
Oh, yeah.
with those preferences as well as skills. So I'm excited to see what you accomplish over there. I'm interested, if you're saying that you didn't like that aspect, aren't there other practice areas in the law that you could have ventured into before doing something like legal tech that also, I'm thinking of maybe mergers and acquisitions. There's no loser.
Well, for sure, but there still is, law is still largely transactional. It is statute-based. It's
Understood.
reading something like that. In the pandemic, which I think is one of the benefits that it had for all of us, it allowed us to have some self-reflection time. And where I said that I wanted...
To say the least.
Yes, where I said I wanted to go as far as you could go in school,
Yeah.
I kind of started realizing that I wanted the education and never really intended to spend a full career being a lawyer. And as I really kind of accepted that truth, I started saying, well, what was it that I really loved about it? And it again goes back to sales and client interaction and strategy are my favorite parts of it. And LegalSoft in this position allows me to really blend those talents into one.
Yeah, okay, I can see that being the case. Two things that you've said that kind of make me, one, I think I'm so focused on you saying like the self-reflection, and also the getting a law degree doesn't necessarily mean you're a lawyer. What do you think are opportunities? Because I think there's a lot of young people out there who are maybe in law school, or people who just started out as lawyers, and I've only dealt with a handful of lawyers who have actually told me, I'm doing this because I went to school to be a lawyer, and I like the clients I'm dealing with, but I'm trying to scale my practice, automate almost everything, and then walk away from it while still maintaining my skills as a lawyer. What opportunities are there for people who have maybe the same epiphanies as you, don't want to do the practicing per se, but there's a lot of need for lawyers in other areas? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Specifically, are you meaning that if they are still...
Like if I go to law school and become a lawyer, but I don't want to open my own firm necessarily, or go work at another firm, what options are there for someone like me?
Well, I think that any type of, careers outside of law for lawyers, is that what you're kind of asking?
Yeah.
Or are you asking about how do they...
Because that's what you're doing right now,
Right.
isn't it? It's
Well,
outside of law as
Right.
much as it could be.
I think that, I don't know, they talk about, so HR is an area that lawyers can go into. There's business analysts that lawyers, because it's heavy critical thinking.
Yeah.
So if there's strategy and things like that, I think that lawyers could find their way into something like that. It is highly specific, and you will find most people that do go to law school want some type of version of practicing and arguing. I think
debate,
yeah.
structure, I'm sure.
I think where LegalSoft and technology, and what's exciting about this company is it actually allows people to focus on what they went to school and shine where they shine. Because often I think that we see across the board, you can be a great doctor, and that doesn't mean that you know how to run a medical practice. You can be a great personal trainer,
That's so true.
and you don't know how to actually run a personal training studio. because they are two different animals. Running a business and the elements that it takes to be successful at that, you have to devote. It is a full-time position, and you will shift from being a lawyer into being a business owner. And that is where I think the disconnect is, and that is where LegalSoft comes in and solves the problems for a lot of people.
Yeah, and creates that bridge. I mean, I started doing in my pitches to really explain, because I get, who are you? What's LegalSoft? I say, if you're a client of mine personally, I'd like you to focus on being two things. Number one, as a lawyer, no one's taking your cases away from you. That's what you went to school for. That's what you're an expert at. I want you to practice your cases. The second thing is CEO. That's business owner and executive level decisions. But when it comes to operations, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to getting you set up with software, which falls under operations. You mentioned before, like turnkey law firm setup. Right. Don't do that stuff. I mean, why? If there's people like us or other comparable options out there that will help you and that have the experience, I think, with dozens, hundreds, thousands of firms, and with all due respect, like as a lawyer, maybe don't.
Right.
Until you start getting in the weeds. But as a young, solo practitioner or just starting out with a firm or any of that, no one taught you that stuff. So no one could blame you for not knowing.
Well, and I also think that there's kind of two things that happen. There's kind of two tracks that happens for lawyers. You have, and we all understand the one traditional track, that there's a big downtown law firm that has 400 lawyers.
Yeah.
Well, that is the top 10% of anyone's law school. And you have to make it into that path at the end of your first year of law school, and if you don't, you're out. That means 90% of us aren't going to go to a downtown law firm. We're not going to start off with a starting salary of $200,000, and we have to go to a different firm and make our own way.
And that's any practice area?
That is pretty much across. That is any practice area. That's across the board. And so it really is saying big law is what it's referred to. You got to think about that is they're servicing Amazon, they're servicing American Airlines, the car. That is their world, and mergers and acquisitions. That is what they're designed to do. They have the resources, and it's just going to stay that way. So the rest of us are servicing real people. And you're getting out there when you have a drug possession, when you get hit by a car wreck, when you need to file bankruptcy, when your mom is in another country and you want her to come live in America.
Right.
All of those lawyers that are helping you. Nothing about law school teaches them how to sell. Nothing about law school teaches them how to run a business. Nothing about law school teaches them how to train a paralegal. But all of those things are a major ingredient in their success. And so my question for you is that's the solution we can offer. How many lawyers don't know how to break down the steps, but they want a virtual assistant? And then you're able to say, well, we actually already trained your virtual assistant for your intake process for you.
Yeah. I mean, I guess how I would answer that is just to say, when it comes to hiring virtual assistants, but when it really comes to, deciding, which I watch it on the call with people, deciding I'm not going to be I'm moving ahead. I'm looking to scale my practice. I'm looking to free up more of my own time. Whatever the reason is, and there's a lot, I just remind them, well, make sure you've got the vision for how it's going to be. It's not just you're so swamped with work right now that you want a virtual assistant to take it off your desk.
Right.
Because especially if you don't even imagine that you've got a full time's worth of work, which you do, I think, to a lot of the attorneys, you just have to be imaginative and, like I just said before, vision for what is my scaled practice going to look like? What are the things that I'm going to have? And that's where I think you're going to shine, not just because of your interests, like you said, with clients and sales and your experience, but also because as a bankruptcy lawyer, you've seen, how many people have you seen? Thousands of businesses fail.
Yeah.
So, for the business owners and these attorneys, to be able to address that specifically and say, I love that you're, want to hire a virtual assistant because that's what we provide. And we want to, accept your business. But before we do, make sure that you're not going to do this and that you don't have the right foundation, and we'll help you.
Right. Alec, what I love about that answer is that now this is touching on to one of my personal just hobbies, which is personal development. You're actually asking people to be intentional about their decisions, and the truth is that we all should do that.
Yeah.
We should all move with intentionality and think about what you're doing, because a warm body isn't going to solve the problem for you.
That's not what our service is.
Right. Well, it's not what anyone's service is. That's happening in businesses now. How many times, almost every business you see says hiring now, and sitting someone, Starbucks, getting someone in there to just stand there isn't going to solve. You need someone who is friendly, that's going to smile, that's going to actually learn how to make your recipes and want to deliver that. To get there, that takes someone making an actual hiring choice and a decision and looking at someone to say who is the right fit. Because you can have the best product in the whole world, but if you don't have the right team at the right time, you'll never be able to deliver the right service.
That's what I think, I'm personally proud, and I can admire our company's process with that, because I think we're not out there to, hire someone that's the wrong fit, certainly. And sometimes it takes waiting, if it's the right fit. And you have the support, I think, from our huge staffing team, that sometimes is in the same country as the people that you're looking to hire, or somehow connected with those people, to get that burden off and add to that intention. Because I think a lot of the attorneys who are so swamped and want that warm body, and that's all they can think about is, how do I get this off my desk?
Right.
I need. We'll help you maybe take a breath and develop that intention, because I think some of them really genuinely want it, and
Well,
I think they have the capacity always.
Yeah.
When I have that intro call with them, just in my experience.
And this is kind of calling back to where we were talking about what's the future of the legal industry. What is interesting is that there hasn't been a lot of sub-industries that have popped up around lawyers, and pretty much from the 70s has kind of just chugged along in the same type of model of how you come, when the need arises, you go find a lawyer, they file a suit, and it moves that way. Where if you think about, banking has tried, we're going to have a call center. Let's move it overseas. Let's cut costs. They tried to be innovative, and then there's all these sub-companies that have moved around to support the one major industry. That's beginning now. There's sub-companies. LegalSoft is able to say technology meets law, which has not ever happened before. You just said that there's clients that are still using a robust Excel spreadsheet for their entire case management software.
Which is
CRMs have been around for years that do automation, that send reminders that when you click done, it sets up an auto pop-up that says, do you want this to be your next step?
Yeah.
It's like all of that stuff, anything you can move off of your brain power and into automation only helps your business. Lawyers are just now getting ready to do that. And so it's exciting that LegalSoft can leverage its experience of hundreds and thousands of lawyers to be able to make recommendations to that new lawyer that says, I want this because I know this is how I open up my own earning potential. Owning your own business in America is how you achieve the dream of being able to really get financial freedom.
Right.
Whether that's both in time and in physical money. And working with LegalSoft and being able to do that is a way that a lawyer can really achieve that at an accelerated rate.
And you'll realize it quickly with the time. I know for a lot of it starting out, you don't see the cash flow right away. And that's one of the things I think I admire about starting your own firm so much, is because you're so committed to these people that you're just starting out with without even seeing anything, but it's your flower that you're just starting to water, your seed you're just starting to water. I guess we actually have hit almost all of these, which is so great. I'm just thinking about what you just have told me, I guess, for the CRMs and being behind. I'm wondering what you think a firm or a lawyer or business owner, right, all kind of combined, that maybe caught on to this before everyone is right now. What does their firm look like today?
Well, probably a mixture of some of the good things, but again, it is oftentimes when you are doing something well, and technology moves so fast that you don't know that there's something else out there. And then when you want to make a measured decision because you want to make sure it actually works in your own workflow, I know for myself, I want to have a demo with all 10, and then I want to have a test case, and then I want to see how I'm going to live it in my process.
Right.
And then it becomes overwhelming because now I've just like given myself 30 days worth of extra work just to make a decision on how am I going to text clients. And you know what is nice about a company like LegalSoft is that you have a feature to say we do that technology work for you. So then we can just go ahead and recommend to you if this is what you're wanting, this is what works.
I guess the answer that I was imagining, so I'll still give it,
please.
And I'm interested, you can say, no, I disagree, is I think this is a firm that, irrespective of the size of it, right, if they've caught on to, I can save myself time, I can save myself money by automating and having technology meet law, right?
Right.
I think that's a company or a firm that has found a lot of ways to generate cases organically and not have to pay for them. And the ones that they probably do pay for, because I do still believe in purchasing leads and using leads.
It's a reality of business
It's a
nowadays.
reality. I think no one, it's a dream come true if you could have completely organic business, but you need to be the size of Apple, and they don't even do that. They probably buy leads. So I think you're at a point where you can almost bulk sell, kind of what we talked about this morning too, bulk sell or somehow have a way to refer cases out that's, almost headache free and generate just business in all kinds of avenues. And then because you freed up, all right, I've got the law thing down. How do I, again, the CEO?
I think that I think you're touching on what's interesting is that a law firm that maybe has already embraced technology and then their systems are doing very well in their originally intended service, like anything, diversified revenue streams. And I don't think that lawyers have really thought about other ways that what they're doing can be leveraged into making more revenue. And that is why cutting edge stuff of classes, webinars that people are paying to on practice management.
That's like the only thing I've seen really.
Yeah.
That lawyers can do as an extra is
Consulting and stuff like that. Well, and now there would say of where I've seen in just my short time at LegalSoft, I never even thought or that is something that Hamid has taught me, this idea that you can retain a case and then you are able to share it and basically lead generate yourself and do it. And it's because prior to that, so lawyer to lawyer, we can do that. The legal industry stifled it. Lawyers in the 80s and 90s, they used to pay CPAs for leads. They used to pay referral networks were huge. That's the whole idea of ambulance chasers. A car wreck, call me. Let me be the attorney. Bar associations didn't want that, so that whole side died down. And so now it's saying lawyers can co-counsel on any case that they want. And so now it is saying that there is an opportunity to teach people that maybe if your practice is maxed out, maybe you have too much on your plate, but if your brand is generating organic leads, that's an opportunity to still make money for your firm.
Or if they're leads that you've paid for, get some return on your investment.
Absolutely.
Why, if you're at full capacity, which happens, and in my opinion isn't that bad of a problem to have.
No.
But if you can handle it, don't just sit on it. That's
right.
You spent the money.
Because your choice in that point is hire another attorney. How much does that cost and how much training do you go in? Or do you have a network that you're a part of that you can pass on the client to get competent service? Because your focus is always going to be, is the client going to get competent service? But then yet, you shouldn't give away something for free.
And what I really hope for those attorneys, and I'm seeing it with some of my long-term clients, is they're getting selective, which is great.
Yeah.
And who doesn't wish that they have we talked about financial freedom, but also the work freedom to say, I want, these minimum kind of case value cases. And if I'm not, I've got this network and they're going to support me being selective.
Well, I can remember there's a lot of power for an attorney when you get to the point in your career when you can sit in a consultation with a client and have the confidence to say, I don't want you as my client, because you're not scared.
Yeah.
Because you're not scared of that. There's going to be a case right after it that is going to work for you.
Wow, that's pretty profound. My last question today is from your point of view. How does Hamid, who is not a lawyer, offer value to the legal industry?
Going back, Alec, I'm having a ton of fun, and
Okay,
I'm
great.
always learning. I think that we have to be open to that. And then segueing that, I think that what is great about Hamid is lawyers that might tend to only believe that a lawyer is the one that's capable of running a law firm. That's the mistake that they would make. Hamid brings an entire career of Silicon Valley experience, startup, technology, which means naturally he is looking for a way to diversify, he's looking for a way for efficiency, he's looking for a way to scale. The idea that law firms traditionally were just, I'm the one downtown law firm, and then they might go into another city. There's very few law firms that are just across the globe. Hamid understands how you can take your practice and scale it across the nation in 5 different revenue streams. And so it really is just that his business perspective of being a non-lawyer and figuring out ways to fit it into a law model, it is value additive from day one.
I think it's interesting that you said scale, or of course that's where I think most people's minds go, scale across the nation. But I've seen him also work closely with firms and say, you're set. Just continue to do what you're doing with your practice, and you'll see it. Because they've got the tools.
Right.
They are kind of technology meets law minded. And his actually ideas, which I'm curious if this has occurred to you as a lawyer, is let's pick up and do a new practice area. There's this one we're in is doing great, but it's really competitive. Let's explore something new, like bankruptcy.
Well, you're absolutely right. And this is a prime example of what Hamid would bring to someone's table. A lawyer would sit there and say, I specialize in bankruptcy or family law, and you'll hear constantly, this is why a referral network exists. Oh, I don't do that. I can't do that. And there's good reason. We just like doctors, general practices don't exist anymore. They have to get good at one thing. The legal industry has followed that. Hamid can show someone and has developed a strategy to say, well, you don't necessarily have to be the lawyer, but you can have an entire arm of your practice that expands, and technology can make it very easy for you to manage.
And that's intimidating. I mean, what would you say to a lawyer who's now a business owner and purely a business owner of a legal or a practice area that they're not so familiar with, but they're opening?
What I would say is that they need to hire LegalSoft to help them do it.
I can work with that. That's a good answer. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Paul. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, it was a blast. Thanks, Alec.